Hello again, everyone, and welcome to Reflecting with Love. I'm your host, James Love. This will be our closing episode to the Let This Mind series, and this episode is simply titled The Mind. To start, I want to reflect on the fact that renewal is not motivation, it's repatterning. In the first episode of Let This Mind, we talked about orientation, not as an idea, but direction. What your life is pointed towards, what your inner compass is quietly set to, even when you're not paying attention. We said that orientation shows itself not in what we claim to believe, but in what we instinctively return to when pressure shows up. Then, in the second episode, we talked about attention, because attention reveals orientation. Where your attention goes, especially when you're tired, stressed, or overwhelmed, tells the truth about what your mind is oriented towards. Not what you admire, not what you agree with, but what you trust. Today, as we close this series, we're going to talk about the mind itself. Not as an enemy, not as something to conquer or silence, but as something that must be understood if faith is going to be lived rather than imagined. The scripture tells us in Romans 12 to be transformed by the renewing of our minds. That word renewing really matters. Renewal assumes something old is being worked with. It assumes existing patterns. Most of us, if we're honest, treat renewal like motivation. Like if we feel inspired enough or feel disciplined enough or spiritual enough, our thinking will just change. But thinking doesn't change overnight. Patterns are formed over years, sometimes decades, and they do not dissolve just because of a good sermon, a powerful prayer, or a moment of clarity. Renewal is not hype, it's repatterning, and repatterning requires attention. Also, here's something important to say very plainly. Being aware of your mind does not automatically solve your problems. Awareness doesn't erase anxiety. It doesn't remove fear on command. It doesn't instantly heal habits. But awareness gets you one step closer. Closer to honesty. Closer to choice. Closer to freedom. Before awareness, the mind runs automatically. After awareness, the mind becomes observable. And what you can observe, you can eventually relate to differently. I think it's also worth being said that faith is not positive thinking. It's not optimism. It's not pretending things are fine. It's not replacing hard thoughts with happy ones. Faith is a reframing of interpretation. The same event can occur, but Christ changes how it's understood. The loss is still real. The disappointment still hurts. The uncertainty still exists. But the meaning assigned to those things begins to shift. This is why faith doesn't start with behavior. It starts with perception. Christ does not rush to control outcomes. He reshapes understanding. Your mind learned fear through repetition. It learned avoidance through repetition. It learned survival through repetition. It will not unlearn those things through force. Renewal happens the same way distortion formed, through consistent exposure to a different way of seeing. This is why scripture is not just information. It is formation. Not because reading it once changes you, but because returning to it again and again slowly reorients interpretation. One of the most damaging misunderstandings in faith is the belief that obedience comes from pressure. Pressure produces compliance. Clarity produces alignment. When the mind is confused, obedience feels heavy. When the mind is clear, Obedience feels natural. This is one reason why I believe Christ teaches before he commands, why he asks questions, why he tells stories, because behavior follows understanding. And guarding the mind is an act of discernment. The book of Proverbs tells us to guard our hearts because everything we do flows from it. Guarding the mind is not paranoia. It is discernment. What you repeatedly expose your mind to will eventually shape how you interpret reality. Not loudly, not immediately, but quietly. Attention is formative. This is also why I believe it's important to be mindful in matters of faith. Being mindful of the mind is not optional, it's foundational. Not because awareness is the solution, but because unawareness guarantees repetition. If you don't know what your mind does under pressure, it will continue to do it when left unchecked. If you don't notice your internal reactions, they will continue to lead you. Faith without awareness becomes performative, but faith with awareness becomes relational. And from my understanding, Christ does not shame awareness. He invites it. Certain questions like, why are you afraid? What are you seeking? Do you want to be healed? These are questions of attention. They slow the mind down. They surface the hidden patterns. They create the needed space. Christ does not force instant change. He brings clarity and then lets the clarity do the work. Being mindful of the mind, again, does not make life easy, but it makes life more honest. And honesty is where faith becomes real. Awareness doesn't solve the issue, but it brings it into the light. And what is brought into the light can finally be seen, understood, and gradually renewed. This is the work of the mind. Not control, not perfection, but faithful attention. I encourage you, let this mind be in you. If you enjoyed this series and enjoy the Reflecting with Love podcast, please do not hesitate to follow us on Spotify, follow us on YouTube, and just continue to support. This was a very enjoyable series to openly reflect on, and I hope it was for you too. If you would like to continue to listen to the podcast, let's say you don't have, you're not sure where to go immediately, YouTube or Spotify, don't worry. Just go to ltisite.com. That's ltisite.com. There will be links there, curated links there that will help you to find the Reflecting with Love podcast. So that way you never have to stop listening. I appreciate you taking some time to listen in today. I'm your host, James Love. Thank you for reflecting with love. Until the next time.